Hi, and welcome to the Handbag Designer 101 podcast with your host, Emily Blumenthal, handbag designer expert and handbag fairy godmother, where we cover everything about handbags from making, marketing, designing, and talking to handbag designers and industry experts about what it takes to make a successful handbag. Welcome, Melissa Gonzalez, to Handbag Designer 101, the podcast. Melissa, principal of MG2, founder of Lioness Group, OG of independent handbag designer world, recovering independent designer life. How are you? Welcome. So happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we're able to do this before the end of the year.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think of that. You know, when you work for yourself on, I think lean and mean, there is no such thing as the end of the year. It's just, it keeps going. By the way, it's the next year, the next day.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
For those who don't know you, I know you, I followed you, I have been following you forever. How you had a platform 200,000 million years ago called Lioness Media, correct?
That is how it started, yes.
Yes. So how did you stumble into the world of independent designs, selling them, finding their value in that? And of course, we will wrap up with, is there still value in that? But let's get down and deep. So what is a tale called Melissa?
Sure. So I have kind of because no road is straight, I have kind of, some twists and turns. So background, when I graduated college, I worked on Wall Street. So that's kind of how.
Where'd you go?
I worked at Penn State University, and then I worked at Credit Suisse. Back then, it was Credit Suisse First Boston.
That's a good first job. People should be jealous of that. That's one of those flyback interview. I can earn enough to pay my rent. I don't need to live with my parents' first job. So well done.
Oh, thank you. I did move out quickly from my parents' house, but my bedroom was a converted dining room. But whatever, I was in the city, so I was excited about that. But yeah, that was kind of my first introduction actually to retail, because I worked in institutional sales and I was a generalist. So I was sitting with management teams for, everything from BB and the Gap to fast growing internet companies. And so, back then was really immersed in conversations to understand vision and what made it work, and what were they projecting and all that, and be able.
Did you find that interesting? Was it interesting?
I think that I find it more interesting as I look back than in the moment, just because I was always pulled to wanting to pursue something a little bit more creative. So I think that didn't allow me to have full appreciation, but I do recognize at a very young age, I was sitting at the table with really intelligent power player in various industries and having the opportunity to kind of hear them and their vision and kind of notice trends and what was working and what wasn't working was pretty valuable. So pull it forward.
You were 22 sitting at the table with grownups in retail, and you were nodding your head oh, okay. Not even realizing that you were behind the curtain of retail Oz. Who knew?
Oh, for sure.
That's wild.
Exactly. Some of the people that I, kind of took to meetings and things like that, for sure, were, C-suite level. And so,
but me too. Here's my business card.
Yeah. Now I can say that to them. But so when I left, I wanted to pursue more creative path. And
how long were you day jobbing in finance?
I left finance officially in 2009. And I graduated 10 years before that. So, but I also interned on Wall Street. So I started my career actually in fixed income. I was in repo, government, trade, and then went to quantitative strategies at Morgan Stanley. And so
that's sexy.
Yeah. Now that you look back, you realize actually it's pretty badass. But
especially as a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially then too. So, but I gravitated to storytelling, and I think that's become the kind of the happy serendipitous path that I've led to now, because I have the foundation of understanding a lot of data coming at me and having to analyze that and then make recommendations from it. But being able to come to the equity side, really lived more in the stories of it, not just the numbers of it. And so bringing that together. And then
if I may, I'm sorry, I am really good at interrupting. People have told me. When you say the equity side, just to clarify what exactly that means, what does that mean for people who are unaware?
Yeah. So like you can make fixed income investments or equity-based investments where what would be like the way you invest in the stock market on average when you buy shares into a stock, that would probably be the most equivalent. But we were doing this at an institutional level. So my clients were more like hedge funds and mutual funds, wealth management that were making minimum buys in the market. So, but just like a person, right, you're going to gravitate to the story of Peloton. Or, the numbers matter too, but we got more immersed in the storytelling side of it as well. And so when I left, I wanted to pull forward more of that storyteller opportunity. And so it did start with Lioness Media, which became Lioness Group as we kind of found ourselves. And in the beginning, there was a big content portion of it.
But because what was it? Like, were you like, okay, I've been in finance for 10 years. I've saved some money, clearly. I think I'm going to start my own company that happens to be about independent designers and selling their products. Like, that is a hearty chunk of the story because having done the same thing, there were very few of us who were trying to, hey, I can start a platform and sell stuff that nobody can find anywhere else. Like, that is an early adopter to the market, even at that point, like adjacent to Etsy, except for in retail goods. So how did you say like, hey, this sounds like a good idea and maybe I'll do it?
Well, it actually was just one of those things that evolved because it wasn't my idea when I left. When I was working on Wall Street, I also was a host of a show called 𝐷𝐵 on BT. And so I had production side of it as well. Because I always kind of wanted to pursue that creative path, and I auditioned, and my leadership was very supportive. Like, as long as you're still at the desk when you're supposed to be, like, do that. And honestly, clients loved it because I'd be like pitching them stocks and like, can we talk about what you had on your show? So it's a good door opener, but it did get me to be more comfortable having to present and thinking on my feet and all of that. So I thought I was going to pursue more of that path when I first left. And I did do a web series called Homemade BFFs, and that kind of got picked up, and I got some money out of that and made the pilot with somebody whose family owned real estate in Midtown Manhattan. And he said, we're trying to do something creative with the street level retail here. Do you want to partner and help us figure out what that could be? And so it was just good timing in that I left on very good terms from Wall Street. I had a little bit of a package and a nest egg. Then we did this Homemade BFF series. It was homemade beauty, fashion, and fitness,
Were there sponsors and advertisers kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And so it was just like, it gave me some opportunity. And so I said, sure, let's give it X amount of months. My cost is time. I don't have real estate costs, that's what they were bringing to the table. And let's see if people find value in this. And so for the first 3 or 4 months, we worked with independent designers, and most of them paid me in product. We didn't know, was it going to work? Was it going to not work? And all this other stuff. And then that was September was the first pop-up. And then by January, we were charging because we started developing a wait list and brands were making sales.
This real estate that you had, was it the same store space, or were they rotating, or were you going based on
the same location? So we started with one location and rotated it. At its height, the program had 3 revolving storefronts.
How long were the leases per se for the independent designers to be there?
Usually a minimum of a month, maximum of 3 months.
Did they have to be on site? Because that was the companies or retailers or so forth that have done this pop-up rotation platform, and there have been a few of them. I think the British company, they sold, and Graham and Walker, those guys who would owned it. First they would charge, then they didn't, then it was a portion of sales, then it wasn't, then there was having them there to work it. How did you come up with that model? Were you there every day to be the host?
I was not. I never ran the store. No, that was not going to happen. But it is a big pain point. And, that's why a lot of companies partner today with Elite, because that's a big part of the commitment, the skill set that's needed. But no, what we provided at the time, and this was pre-Lioness Group, this was Lioness Media, was because we had a production arm with it. And that was the partnership with the family too, because the son had helped with the pilot of my other idea. So we would make video content, tell the stories of the brands that were coming in. That was part of the package that they got, the media kit. I had relationships with everybody from Time Out and, you know, New York Magazine and all of that. So we did, as part of it, we did media production, PR support, because we were PRing also the program. So after a while, people knew, okay, who do you have next? What we could write about. And then we helped them design and the space. But they had the product and operating was their responsibility. In the beginning, we did do a portion of sales, but that was really tricky. Some were more honest than others. It wasn't going through our POS system. It caused a lot of chasing. But through data, we got to see, okay, like what really do we think is kind of the average sales? And so we used that to guide what we charged in rent. And then it became more of a flat fee program so that we were getting the rent we needed for the package that we were providing. And there were add-ons to that package if you wanted to have an opening reception or whatever it was. And at its height too, we had all 3 storefronts. People were adding opening receptions. They were taking over event spaces. People were blocking hotel rooms. So it was a win-win for the hotel and for the brand.
Do you think that
model, evolution of learning?
Do you think that model could work now post-pandemic where people are so hungry for newness and events and excitement?
Sure.
Because you see all of these, you know, pop-ups are coming back and events are coming back and fancy clothes. I mean, it's very cyclical to, I've spoken about this 100 times, but like post-Spanish flu and going into the roaring 20s and this whole like, we want to party, we want to shop, we want an excuse to look cute, you know, this whole whimsical novelty aspect.
Yeah, I do think so. I think though that would happen with like the word pop-up got oversaturated and not everything was a great experience. I mean, if somebody hosted a class, they called it a pop-up, you know? So I think that you have to be careful with that, but also location still matters too. There's very few industries, like categories. Like when we did pop-ups with sneaker brands, sneakerheads will go anywhere to find the drop, but most brands don't and categories don't have that. So yes, I do think that's possible. And I do think it'd be really interesting with hotels still because you have a mix of, you know, especially in New York, you could be near residents and workers that are commuters that are coming in regularly, but then you also get the tourists and they want something, you know, interesting and unique to take with them. So yeah, but location and curation still are critical for that success.
That's so interesting. I mean, I bet in the thick of it, you probably, you know, I know you probably weren't there, but like organizing events is not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. It is exhausting. You know, people see, I mean, I've done my share of pop-ups with independent designers, obviously, specifically handbags. But, you know, one thing could fall through, like the liquor doesn't show up, the security doesn't show up, your insurance doesn't come through on time. Like even the things that you would take for granted that you would have on a day-to-day, one thing doesn't work. And then all of a sudden everything kind of falls apart. And then it kind of lands on you to eat the loss. If like they, or even the people who paid for it don't even show up, then what?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, most people that paid for their contract showed up.
or like their inventory didn't show up on time.
That's definitely happened, especially if it was an international brand. Very tricky.
Yeah.
And it hurts when you're a small independent, you know, designer. You don't have the same cushion as some of the larger brands to take those hits, you know. For some, the pop-up, the 1 or 2 they did a year was like the bulk of their revenue for the year.
Yeah.
So you know, to be really mindful about that, planning ahead. Just because it's short in duration doesn't mean planning is. So be really thoughtful about all the elements.
So how long did you do that before you recognized? Because I know you also, if I'm not correct, I believe you had an online platform too that was selling said wares.
You have a great memory. Yes. Yeah. So I would say from 2009 to 2012, there was a lot of kind of evolution and learning. 2009, fall of 2009 was the first pop-up, New Form Perspective, NFP Studio with Bill Travis. And then that evolved, I would say, I think it was around 2011, 2012 when we launched e-commerce. It was only for about a year. This was when, you know, Shopify was just becoming a thing. And what the impetus of it was, we were having these great pop-ups and then people would keep emailing us, where'd the brand go? How do I shop them? And most of them didn't really have fully developed e-commerce platforms. So it was meant to be like a curating marketplace of that. But as you know, e-commerce takes a lot of time and energy and money and infrastructure to really grow it. And so that wasn't the long direction that I pursued, but I did do that for a period of time and was part of 𝐿&Sandler's incubator program, learned a ton. And then so took that, we closed it and decided, you know what, we're going to really focus on physical retail, because while we were working so hard to make
was it tough to close it? Because were you like, I'm so goddamn burnt out at this point. This isn't.
I mean, it's like anything that once you let it go, you decompress from it and you realize like, okay, it's better. But in the moment of you put so much sweat equity and heart into it that it's a really hard decision. But what I would say, you know, and I've learned over time, like numbers don't lie, and that is your indicator, and trust it and make the right decisions, because there's the opportunity cost of maybe you could be doing something else and we're doing something differently or doing it better. And so I learned a ton from having e-commerce. It made me a better advisor and strategist with the brands we work with today, because it gave me a better perspective of omnichannel and kind of understanding how it all needs to connect to be successful and how all the different touch points feed each other. So I would say like it didn't work, but I invested in my education through that. And while we were pursuing e-com so much, there was so much organic and bigger brands coming our way wanting to work together for physical. So it was like, sometimes too, if you're fighting so hard in one direction that doesn't allow you to hear all the organic positive stuff that's happening, you know, then you can have a missed opportunity.
If I may, though, speaking about this, because the platform you had at the time, there really weren't too many competitors. I mean, look, we ran, I don't even know how many years we ran Handbag Designer 101 as a platform for independent designers. And with all due respect, it nearly killed me because, you know, it was drop ship, which most retailers are trying to push right now. I've spoken about that extensively, that you want to get into Walmart. Walmart carries brands that you wouldn't expect to be on a Walmart-based platform. However, it's income coming in. It's another distribution revenue channel for them. So why shouldn't they? But dealing with an independent designer, I was also doing press for it. It was like a 360, as you said. It was as much as omni-channel as it could have been. And, you know, we know the pain points of being a small brand and delivery and quality control and shipping and returns. And then to have to deal with that, because then you're the one who has to deal with that and then go back to the designer and say, okay, you have a giant order. Why aren't you delivering on time? And all these things, it's enough to say like, why am I doing this? And then try to look at it and say, okay, what are my takeaways? Where are the unique selling points and what's the value of dealing with the smaller brand? So do you think there are some takeaways that, having dealt with that you can share the knowledge to an independent brand, saying, here's some things to think about or to keep in mind? Because so many designers neglect to see themselves as a business. And, you know, you lose customers once, they don't come back.
Yeah, I think there's just so many options out there that people have less patience for that, for sure. You know, I think the hook is where a lot of them are probably really strong. You know, there's an authenticity too when you get to interact with the founder, and people love that and love to support that. I mean, that's what made a lot of the pop-ups really successful. Like, they came because they love to be able to feel like, I know this designer and they're my friend and I shop from them. But then things have to back up to that. Like, that's just stage one of your relationship. You know, the quality of the product in their hands matters. The follow-up that you do after the purchase matters. You know, how you handle a return with them matters. Customer service, right? All of that stuff. It's like, everybody quotes Maya Angelou, but it's true. Everybody remembers how you make them feel. You could probably get a shitty product, but if I treated you right, you'll give me a second chance.
If you ever wanted to start a handbag line and didn't know where to start, this is for you.
Living proof that independent designers can make it big.
Absolutely. Blumenthal is one prime example.
If you had dreams of becoming a handbag designer and didn't know where to start, this is for you. If you have a handbag brand and are in need of strategy and direction, this is for you. I'm Emily Blumenthal, handbag fairy godmother and handbag designer expert, and this is Handbag Designer 101, the masterclass. Over the next 10 classes, I will break down everything you need to know how to make, market, and manufacture a handbag. Broken down for you that you'll not only skip steps in that handbag building process, but also save money in that learning curve. For the past 20 years, I've been teaching at the top fashion universities in New York City, created the Handbag Awards, and also the Handbag Designer 101 podcast. I'm going to show you like I have countless brands from sketch to sample to shelf, whether you're just starting out and don't know where to begin, or even if you have a handbag line and just need some strategic direction, the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass is just for you. So let's get started, and you will be the creator of the next it bag. Join me, Emily Blumenthal, with the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass. Actually, there's a TED Talk that I show my students. I think I show it on like class 1 or class 2 in my entrepreneurship class at FIT. And I can't recall who the speaker was, who this woman was, but there's an anecdotal story of lawsuits against doctors with bad bedside manners versus positive bedside manners. And there was a doctor who apparently had operated on a patient's wrong leg, like got it mixed up, genuinely mixed up, and did the operation on a functioning part of the body as opposed to the broken part of the body. Because the doctor was really, really, really apologetic, the patient didn't press charges.
Yeah.
It's not litigious. And that's truly goes back to how you deal with your customer. If you make a mistake, own up to it. How can I fix it? What can I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I recommend doing the surgery on somebody's wrong part of the body. Don't get me wrong on that.
Yes, it's a different magnitude than like putting them in their own handbag.
I sent you the wrong style.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. But there's plenty of disruptors, right, in the e-com space that they want on customer service, and that's how they really built their brand. So you got to think about the packaging, so that even though somebody paid for it, it feels like a gift. What are the things you're going to, what's the right, appropriate follow-up so you get them to come back again, So it's really having a holistic approach to that. And I would say when you're starting out, don't try to be all things, because you're going to probably have a small team and it's going to be really challenging to do all those things well. So like, what are the top 3 things you can do great? And then keep building upon that, so that you really are positioned for success to consistently deliver upon that and get known for that and grow and then add on top of that.
That's good. That's a really good piece of advice. What are the top 3 things that you have to offer and you do well? Because 100%, you cannot be everything to everyone. And that's always a mistake. I mean, I think we all go through that as founders when you start out, and to narrow cast your demographic and recognize, hold on, I can't cater to everyone. So who am I catering to and who am I doing it well? So that is some sage advice, Melissa. I appreciate that. So after you're burnt out, you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm over it. How did you evolve? And, after realizing something, and I'm not saying it didn't work, but it didn't work as well as obviously you would have hoped. Why did you even keep the name Line-esque? What was I
debated that a long time, for sure. And especially when
I hope you don't mind me asking.
No, as we pursued the niche of pop-up, people were like, you should just be the pop-up agency. And then I was like, well, if I go so niche in my name, can I ever become anything else? So with Line-esque, the background of it is I'm a Leo. I went to Penn State, we were Lions. And then at the time it was all women and I'm a woman. So esque is kind of like what got added to the word lion. And then what evolved is we were Line-esque Productions and Line-esque Media, then Line-esque Group. And that's kind of where we, evolved to for more of the retail strategy design portion of it, not all the production influencer stuff. That's still kind of Line-esque Media. But so that's kind of like what the evolution was, because I wanted to, people also knew the name. So it's like, how do I leverage that? Even though I had to kind of educate that we were pivoting, but also keep a name that wasn't so niche that if we evolved, I couldn't do anything with that. So
but it's like a pivot though, shut something down, did you officially shut it down?
Yeah.
Or was it like, so you're like, okay, website shut, done. What was your plan?
You have to be okay failing fast. I mean, that's the thing that I think, most entrepreneurs that are successful had failures, and you have to be able to pivot. It's not a failure to pivot either. It's the ability to recognize, like, this isn't working. These are my parameters. I'm willing to have losses, or you know what I mean? So you have these stopgaps happen, and be able to be brave enough to say, that's not the right approach. Maybe I have a right idea, but that's not the right way to execute it. Or maybe I have a great team, but we need to pivot on what the idea is because that's not what the market's asking for, And so the ability to be able to do that is actually success. And so sometimes I think it's easy to get trapped in that, But if you allow yourself to watch the numbers, know that they're your friend, because I would do that in the beginning too. I'm going to look at these numbers, but you have to. And then be able to say, okay, let's analyze that. What about that's working? What can I do different? The 3 things: right idea, right team, right time. Things have to line up, right? You can have the best idea, but if you don't have a team to execute it, an idea is worth how much without that part of it. And then sometimes you might have an idea, but the market's not ready for it. And that happens a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of you really have to think about that and put the passion in it, but be able to separate yourself with a business lens at critical points to say, then personal, business. So is this working? And if it's not, what can I change about it?
Damn, that is good. I mean, look, the handbag that I created, I had patented the silhouettes. Here I thought I was this incredible, I split the atom, the handbag designer, not trained in design. Look, I've done something that's far better than what everybody else is at. You have that kind of delusion when you start, kind of think you have to some extent, because you are, no matter how much experience you have, nobody's going into anything being like, I've done this, I know exactly what I'm doing. Because until you're in it, you don't realize, I didn't know 90% of this.
Yeah.
It took me 6 years until I was able to license out my silhouettes, because my bag couldn't sell without me being there to sell it. And that was a wild, wild epiphany to recognize, because it was a wallet wristlet fusion, and it was not something that people could understand on its own without me there doing the dog and pony show. This is how you put it on. This is how you wear it. Here's the unique selling points. And to do that with a business.
There wasn't TikTok then, because then you would have had an army helping you with that.
Exactly. I would have done all of that. It's so funny to think about that. And that never crossed my mind.
Maybe you got to bring it back and get it to some TikTokers.
Listen, I had 3 patents before I was 27. And boy, to use the word IP when no one knew what it was, I'm like, you're all so dumb. But meanwhile, what does it matter? So you pivoted into something that was the same but very different. How did you approach that?
So I pivoted a few times throughout, went from Wall Street to being an entrepreneur, physical only, bringing in e-com, shut that down, focus on physical, worked with great brands and opportunities, Marc Jacobs, J. Hilburn, The Real, Reed. I mean, we worked with great brands. And then I had another idea, and I was part of XRC, and I came up with the retail tech idea, and I partnered with RFID company called Impinj. And, it was another learning. That one was, I had a good idea, but it was a very different use case that was much more complex. I didn't have the team for it really. And we were ahead of our time. And so I think with the right team and the right investment, we could have developed it so when the market was ready. But all those things matter, and I had learned from earlier that I probably could have shut it a little faster, but I pulled the plug because I realized I did not have the team that was going to make this happen. And it was a very complex idea. So, but all that too.
Do you think it was sometimes the ideas that are too complex, that they're too hard to digest and explain, and therefore if you have to be there to present it to a point to educate, that sometimes that is part of the barrier itself. Like, oh God, if I have to be there to explain it to every single person, then maybe this isn't something that's going to work.
From a product standpoint, I would say yes. Like what people don't get it. When it comes to tech, it's a little trickier because there's two things. Sometimes it's like the simplest thing, like the person who invented the bottle cap that lives on every Coke bottle, Pepsi bottle, like that in theory is the simplest thing. And when you have something that simple that can go that mainstream and that wide, like success. But then there are other things that are complex. And when it comes to tech on those things, I feel like it's kind of like we're seeing in AI now and like what Microsoft's offering, like it's super complex, which means it's super expensive, which means your addressable market's probably pretty small. And you're going to need to have the right infrastructure and runway to get past that part till it gets to be more attainable pricing, more, mass scale adoption as possible and stuff like that. So tech's kind of like a different animal than like product, but even to get through all that, you need the right team, the right investment partners, like
Did you always know that for what you were doing past Lioness Media, that whatever you would do would require investment?
No, because Lioness Group never took investment. That was more of people business, and I was like, I couldn't, but for tech, I did, I think, because I'm not a coder myself. So, I think if I had the opportunity where I had the vision and I could literally write all the code myself and was a graphic designer and was all the things,
right?
Maybe, but knowing I wasn't, then yes, I was going to need to make investment. But I felt with technology, kind of like with a product company, service companies are much harder.
Yeah.
I think in this aspect, but because those are the kinds of opportunities where you can make money in your sleep, right? So like if you make a number, like certain amount of investment, that will monetize over time because you start selling thousands and thousands of handbags, or for this technology, right? Thousands of retailers are adopting it. So like,
and what was
an investment in that makes sense.
What was the tech, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, so it's called Field Tap, and we created an RFID-backed shoppable key, and we piloted it in partnership with General Growth Partner, which is now GGP, which is now Brookfield, and we piloted in the store. But the thought of it was, how do we create physical experiences that mirror the e-com experience, where if you're shopping online, you can add things to your cart and remember and get back to it later. So we did that for physical retail, where with your RFID-backed key, as you were shopping, you could add things to your digital cart, but from a physical location. So for the consumer, they got to remember what they liked. They were able to text their cart to somebody else to get advice. On the brand and retailer side, you could see attribution, which is one of the biggest pain points in physical retail. So people were they could get evidence of what kind of the products people were discovering in store, but adding to their cart. Every one of the links was an affiliate link with the brand. So we were able to track when a sale happened, and it gave insights on like how many touch points did they need to have before they made a purchase? What was the average amount of time it got to a purchase? What kind of products were they purchasing outside of the store? So it was like, in theory,
that's some sexy data,
but it was very complex to build.
Yeah. So I mean, any
right tech CTO and then team to build under it. So I knew like that was sad because you was sad.
So much of your time into building,
but you just know it wasn't going to work without that.
How long did that take you before you were like, okay, time to pivot again?
It was a year. I think it was a year.
And you had you had investment for that.
Yeah. Small, like seed round investment. But I knew in order for us to show the milestones and to be able to get to where I needed to go, we'd need a bigger runway. I'd need a different team. And, I think that become more successful. And like, as you're a founder, regardless of it, you need to really like, with achieving this idea, what is the core skills that I bring to the table and what do I need to build around me? And they have to be the right people. Like when you're going from employee 1 to even 10 or probably even 20, but like every seat matters.
Yeah.
100%. And so like, what is that matrix together? And then you have your advisors too. That was how I started. But in that, I needed a like kind of a tech co-founder who was a kick-ass technologist, but had a mutual understanding and respect to, I brought industry expertise, you bring tech expertise, and we have to like develop together. Yeah. And that's not always easy when you work in technology companies, that you find that harmonious partnership.
But I think that can even be translated into having a partner for your own brand, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's great to have a duplicate skill set, but if you are going to have a partner, it has to be divide and conquer. Like, I need to be able to successfully defer to you on things that I can't do. So that's the whole puzzle piece of it. But can I just ask you, and again, like all this speaks to something larger, having taken investment, even seed investment, and the fact that, you pivoted, therefore you had to move on, therefore saying maybe it didn't work. Was that a hard pill to swallow? Was that the first time you take an investment to look at it in a different way, being like, oh, I just know for so many founders that, obviously speaking of handbags, who get money, and even if it's friends and family round, there's a certain amount, especially with women, the guilt of failing when you take people's money.
So
if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, with the website, ecom, that was friends and family, and it was super hard. And you have to do it with the right people who you'll be friends on the other side of it. Some are the same kind of friends, and some friendships changed, and it was really hard. But you kind of, like, if you're going to invest at early stage too, you have to know. You're probably making a donation. But at the end of the day, because when you're that early stage, the odds, right? It's very much lower percentage when you're that early stage. And so when I did it for the tech company, it was seed stage, but more institutional. So I didn't take from friends because I didn't want to do that path again, because I know what that felt like. But I also realized that when you get investments, money is only a portion of it. You need network and advice. There's other things you need too. So you got to get the money from the right partners as well, because that's the way you're going to more effectively put their money to work too.
My God, Melissa, we haven't even gotten to what you do. And I know we've taken up like 800 hours of your day, but this in itself was like, I wanted to round out with where you are now. And if you could throw in some touch points about handbags industry, anything you can, some takeaways before, because I don't want to hold you captive for too much longer.
No. Yeah. So now through all of my journey in 2019, so 10 years later, we were approached for acquisition by a company called MG2. They're a global design architecture firm. Spent a lot of time. Yeah. Also, MG2 is not my initials. Yes. But it's fun when people think so. But yeah, we did a lot of diligence, is this culturally the right partnership? What are the synergies, etc. So I would say all my stops along that path in the 10 years, working with independent brands, working with, fast growing digital natives that are VC backed, working with mass retailers that are trying to think like D2C companies, experimenting with e-commerce, trying technology, all of that makes me a stronger strategist today working with brands as I dip into the digitization of the store and the opportunities of things beyond where we are today. So I would say just always remember, like, you're learning along the way. You're like, I say, like, sometimes I'm the authority in the room and sometimes I'm the rookie in the room. And I got to be able to fluctuate around that in order to be like always growing. And that's the opportunity. So today I am a principal and shareholder in the firm that acquired us, which is MG2. I lead strategy for consumer experiences. So we help brands and retailers. We're also doing work in cinema and F&B, helping them kind of like, what's the future? And it could be anything from they're embarking on their first location to evolving who they are to, it's a lot of different life stages that we work with. And so that's what I do today. I also have a podcast like you called Retail Refined. And on there, I have conversations with everything from like C-suite to brands and retailers to founders of technology companies. So, we're having these kind of comprehensive conversations about the future of the consumer and what does that mean for retail experiences. And yeah, that's kind of, I think I answered the question. Did I stray?
No, stray away. Melissa Gonzalez, how can we follow, get more information? Are you open to people reaching out just for thoughts, conversations, so forth?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. you have to search for Melissa Gonzalez YNS on LinkedIn, because if you just search Melissa Gonzalez,
There's a couple.
So LinkedIn's great. You can follow my podcast, which is Retail Refine. We have some great guests on there. And that's probably the best two ways. And, that'll end up in my inbox. So,
Woohoo. Melissa, thank you so much. This has been so enlightening from so many different angles. And I know the takeaways for this are vast and hearty. And I just want to thank you for being part of Handbag Designer 101 today.
yes, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review and follow us on every single platform at Handbag Designer. Thanks so much. See you next time.